Now, we want to make sure we have a good time for our fall festival with a twist. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to have our fall family fest at Top Golf. Yes! Make sure your kids come out on what? Saturday, October 31st, 2020. Yes, we are going to Top Golf to make sure our kids have a wonderful time with family in a safe, open, outdoor experience. So the kids can wear their costumes. Best costume wins a big old hug. Yes. So make sure you come on out. We will have a good time in the Lord. The kids can play miniature golf, and we have bays that they can use to hit a few balls at the same time. So it'll be a night of fun fellowship, and that will be from 5 to 7 p.m. Hello everybody, it's Minister Ray. Listen, I have some important Oak Seeds announcements for you all. Christmas is coming. Yes, it's coming, and it'll be here before you know it. Retail is ready, and so are we. So listen, please join us. Have your child or your children participate in our virtual Christmas special. But guess what? Rehearsals will be virtual, but we'll meet here for mandatory practices at TheOak on December 1st and December 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Now, all you have to do is register. Yes, pull out your phones, pull out your tablets, download the Church of Oakland app if you haven't already, and be sure to click on Oak Seeds, and there you will be able to find all the registration information that you need. Listen, I love you dearly. I look forward to seeing all of your children, and I can't wait for you to join us for a different kind of Christmas, same Savior. Yes, that's our theme for 2020. God bless you. Have a good day. Good evening, everybody. It's Minister Ray, and welcome to our Oak Seeds study session. I'm so glad that you all decided to join us. We are still in our series, The Parables of Jesus. And while we're discussing all these things, we're going into the book of Matthew, and we're pulling out all kinds of different parables and lessons taught by Christ. Now, the beautiful thing about this particular lesson that we're going to dive into tonight is that it has a woman in it. I love studying and talking about the women of the Bible. It's a blessed thing, I'm trying to tell you. So listen, I need you all to turn to Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 23. Now, while I would love to do this whole snippet, we'll finish it next week. But to begin, I want to make sure that we understand some very key players that are happening in this narrative. Now, I gave you plenty of time to dive into Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 23. Now, it's a small section, but it's a very important section. And so today's lesson is titled, Can You Handle the Truth? Now, here's two things that I want to put into your thought processes. So, question number one, love asking questions. So, question number one, have you ever been in a situation where you love to hear people applaud you for doing something great? Yes, I'm sure you have. Has anyone ever wanted to make you number one? They have? I'm sure they have, because you're an amazing person. So I don't see why they wouldn't. Well, guess what? This is something that happened in the story. Yes. And it didn't just happen by any person. It was a mother who had a beautiful name meaning peaceable, and her name was Salome. And she wanted to ask something very profound of Jesus. So we're going to learn about that. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, have you ever asked a question you really wanted the answer, but you weren't really ready for the truth in the answer? Okay, so that was probably a lot for you to take in, so let me just wind it back up. Okay, so have you ever had to ask a question, right? It was a legitimate question, it was a sincere question, but the truth wouldn't necessarily be the answer that you would want to hear. Now, was that a little bit better? Okay, so today, because our title is Can You Handle the Truth, it really comes from a movie I watched a long time ago. I am so not going to say the name of the movie. Probably can't do that because of copyright. But it had a very famous actor in it. His name was Jack Nicholson. And he asked a very profound question in a courtroom scene. Can you handle the truth? I love that. And so the whole point was, if I answer your question, can you really handle the truth? So now we're going to learn about the truth. Now, one of the things that we discussed last week, did you watch last week? If you didn't, go to YouTube. Hello, it's there. Okay, it's fine. So last week we talked about 4 words that are very profound as Jesus taught us the ultimate prayer. And those words are, thy will be done. Now, if we're really going to do the will of God, you have to be able to handle the truth. Oh, I'm going to make it all connect. It's going to all come together. Yay, connect the dots. La, la, la. Okay, you didn't ask for that. Okay, so that's part 1. So let's actually read the Bible so you can understand, but I wanted to put some thoughts into your mind so that you can get the framework of where we're trying to drive today in the Word of God. Let's dive in. It's amazing. Matthew 20, verses 20 through 23. And the word of the Lord reads, hold on, I was on the next page. I'm ready now. So, then the wife of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons. She bowed before him and asked him to do something for her. Other translations say, do her a favor. Remember that part. Jesus asked, what do you want? She said, promise that one of my sons will sit at your right hand and the other will sit at your left side in your kingdom. But Jesus said, you don't really understand what you're asking. Can you drink the cup that I am about to drink? That's deep. The sons answered, yes, we can. Verse 23, Jesus said to them, oh, you will drink the cup. You will drink from my cup, but I cannot choose who will sit at my right or my left. Those places belong to those whom my Father, that's God, has prepared for them. Now, this is a very profound text. I love it. I love it for several reasons. One, it has a mother who is about that life. She is like, listen, I need my sons to have a spot at the highest place, on your right and on your left. Now, let's backtrack. Who are we talking about? I told you her name is Salome, and her name means peaceable. Now, she is the wife of Zebedee, who really isn't mentioned except for the fact that he was a fisherman, he had a business. That's when Jesus found his sons, James and John, who are in the story. So now, who are all of these players? She was also a very prominent woman in Jesus's ministry. One of the women who was at the cross. Yes, she cared for Jesus. She was all about his ministry and serving him. Some places even have it written that she was Mary's sister, but a lot of scholars really refute that argument, so we're just going to keep it moving. So now, Salome is coming to Jesus, and she is coming with a bold request. Now, she's coming with a bold request for not one son, but 2. Now, let's pause. Jesus did pick them. They were fishermen. I just told you about their dad, Zebedee. So they totally left their dad and was like, Jesus was like, hey, come follow me. I'm making fishers of men. They were like, we out of here. So they followed Jesus. left their dad on the boat with the other workers and everything and was like, oh, we about that Jesus life. And so they went, they followed Jesus, and eventually it's assumed that their dad passed away over time. And that's why their mom, Salome, is there also. Now, with all of these things going on, who are the two sons? They are James and John. Now, these aren't just any disciples. Let me tell you why their mom wanted them to be at the right and the left of Jesus. Don't you love it? Yes, I'm going to tell you. Okay, so these were the two that saw Jesus transfigured. Yes. So they were in Jesus's inner circle. So they got to see the real Jesus. They saw him transfigured up on the mountain. That's when they saw Moses and Elijah. And then they were also the ones that were able to see Jairus' daughter raised up from the dead. They were in his inner circle. And then while the other disciples were at Gethsemane, they were even in the innermost place in Gethsemane. It's a beautiful place. I've seen it. It's amazing. They were in the innermost place with Jesus in Gethsemane praying. So these weren't just any people that she was trying to get at his right and his left. They were the inner circle. In other words, Jesus had 12 homeboys, right? 12 disciples. And they were the two that were like the ones that really got chosen. And the other one who always got chosen was Peter. But Peter's not in this part of the story. So with all of this going on, she felt like, hey, you let my sons in on some really personal action in your life, even though the Gethsemane part didn't come yet. But she was like, hey, hook me up. But not just for me, for my sons. Now, this is problematic, but this presents us with some very high level information. Number one, she was a woman who was given agency to speak for herself. Now, in the ancient Near Eastern culture, women were viewed in a very negative light, for the lack of a better word. In other words, they weren't really the ones to speak up. They weren't really the ones to have a voice or to come before anyone. But she bowed herself down in humility and she asked a favor of Jesus. She wanted him to promise something that she couldn't really handle the truth in his answer. Now, the other thing that we have going on here that is very important for us to point out is that she wanted prominence. That's a big word, Minister Ray. We're kids. Okay. That means that she wanted her kids to have a higher position than any of the other disciples because they were already in his inner circle. Now, remember I asked you when we first started, have you ever been in a situation where someone wanted you to be number one? Yes. It's their mother. And a mother loves their child or children. So they always want their children to be number one. But the lesson that Jesus wants us to understand is that God is the one who chooses people. And he chooses people based on their commitment and relationship to our relationship with Christ. See, it's not about always being number one. It's not about being the first. It's not about always being called on. It's about being humble and letting your actions speak for themselves. See, when I was growing up, my mom used to always tell me, you don't need to open up your mouth about everything. Let your presence speak for itself. It's always better to be seen and not heard. Okay, well, that works in some arenas and it doesn't work in others. But at the same time, you have to let your character and your actions go before you. But I don't want to skip ahead because that's really down toward the end. So now we have to make sure that we understand that her request is bold. She's given agency. That means she's able to speak up because she's close enough to Jesus, or she feels close enough to Jesus, or she can ask something on behalf of her sons. She is a mother coming to Jesus, asking her for her sons to be able to be in a better position. But guess what? In the process of this, Jesus ends up asking her a very good question. And his question exactly was, you don't understand what you're asking. Can you drink the cup that I am about to to drink. Now, Jesus already knew that the cross was coming. He knew that the crucifixion was coming, and the pain and the agony that he had to endure to the point where he was sweating blood. That is some intense pain. And remember, it was a very bitter cup that he had to drink, because even in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked God the Father, shall this bitter cup pass me? Because it was that intense. So he's asking them, you want to be at the right and the left of me, but can you handle the truth? Can you handle this cup? Can you handle the drink of the cup? But then he gave her the truth. And the truth was not what she wanted to hear, but it was the truth. Because it's Jesus. He ain't going to tell you nothing but the truth. And that truth was, you will drink from my cup, but I cannot, but who will sit at my right or my left? That's for God the Father to choose. And so he gave her the truth, but he also gave her revelation. Side note, John, the one that's right here, he actually wrote Revelation. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so backdrop. Who are the sons of Zebedee? James and John, right? So I told you they were in the inner circle. They got to see all of the good stuff. And ironically, James ended up being a martyr. That means that Herod ended up taking his head off. Not really nice. And then John ended up being exiled to Patmos, where he ended up writing the book of Revelation. And he wrote the Gospel of John. Go figure. And he even titled himself as the one whom Jesus loved. So with all of these things, they want notoriety, they want prominence, but the truth in what will happen to them in the revelation that Jesus gives them is not very powerful and good that they want to hear. It's a bitter cup. Can you handle the truth? Can you handle the revelation that God is going to give you when you ask a bold question? Now, I'm not trying to make everything sad. It's Bible study. So you got to kind of understand and learn these things. It's a good thing for us to learn these things. So here's what I want you all to understand. Is it good to ask Jesus questions? Yes, absolutely. Is it good for moms to pray for their sons? It absolutely. Yes, I pray for my child all the time. I need to. So don't be offended or don't be upset thinking that you can't ask Jesus for anything. You can. But I want to make sure that you understand that when you ask Jesus a question, you need to be able to handle the truth. And the truth will come in Jesus giving you revelation. See, Jesus gave them revelation of some things that will come because he said, you will drink the cup. But the cup just wasn't what they thought it was going to be. The position and prominence and notoriety wasn't what they thought it would be. She wanted them to have a high position in the kingdom of heaven because they're thinking in terms of hierarchies. You have the king. Jesus is the king of the Jews. You know, that's what they put over his cross. And then, so she's thinking in terms of, I want my sons to have a noble place. That means a royal place in Jesus's kingdom. But remember, God is all about commitment and relationship with Christ and others. So listen, you can ask God questions. It's okay. I want you to ask God questions. But I want you to understand that in all this, let's link it back to last week's lesson, thy will be done. And if Jesus or God's will be done in your life, then you need to be able to handle the truth. And handling the truth, God will always give you revelation. So this week, pray with your family. Yes, it works. Pray with your family. Pray with your moms, dads, aunties, grandmas, whoever. And make sure you ask God for revelation and ask him to grant you the understanding in what to pray for and to handle the truth. Listen, I love you. Bible study was long this week, but guess what? We can handle the truth, right? This is where you say yes. Yes. Okay. So as you're handling the truth, make sure that you join us, continue to watch, Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hello, the Church of Oakland. See, the Church of Oakland? Yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. Let's connect, because Christianity and our relationship with Christ is all about our connections. So I love you dearly. Thank you for joining our OC study session, and I will see you all next week. God bless you.